Hello, and welcome to the Argyle HR Leadership Forum. My name is Brittany Sullivan with Argyle, and it's great to have everyone joining us today. I have some important information to share with you, and then we will turn the floor over to our esteemed opening keynote speaker. First, we would like to take a moment to thank today's sponsors, iSIMS, Zendesk, and Eightfold AI. Our sponsors are committed to providing you with valuable content and a great overall experience. At any time during today's event, you can visit their virtual booths from the main agenda page, which include complimentary materials, information, and meet and greet opportunities. We also welcome you to stay socially connected during today's event. For those of you who are active on social media, please use the hashtag ArgyleDigital and follow us at Argyle Exec Forum. Also, be sure to follow Argyle on LinkedIn for special announcements. Finally, and most importantly, we would love to hear from you. So during each session, we encourage you to submit your questions and comments in the Q&A box on your screen. Following each presentation, we have set aside time for our speakers to weigh in on your questions. Thank you again for joining us. Now, without further ado, I would love to introduce our speaker, Monty Williams, founder, executive coach, HR practitioner, and author. We are excited to have Monty with us for his opening keynote titled Talent Acquisition for Your Flexible Workplace. Welcome, Monty, and over to you.
How's everybody doing? Awesome. So I've been going back and forth about the best way to start this because I don't believe in vertical relationships, right? Where it's higher or lower. It's more about horizontal relationships and sharing stories and experiences. And from time to time, the universe tends to put what you're supposed to talk about it all together, and it comes up in various different pieces. So when I got the call to give a talk, I said, I want to wait until I want to see what life kind of presents us and presents me before I get into making the talk. So I waited and I waited and I waited. And Brittany asked me for the slides, and I said, well, hold on a second. I'm still waiting for the life experience to happen. And then the experience happened, where I can encapsulate what I really want to talk about today. And so I'm going to share a couple stories. We're going to talk about what I call the culture equation, and then we'll open the floor for questions. I encourage when we get to the question piece that you ask questions and let this be something open and more of a dialogue than anything else. So I'd like to start with I have a son. I have two sons. I have a 8-year-old. His name is Magnus, and I have a 13-year-old. His name is Logan. And Logan is going through transition in his life right now. He got his braces off 6 months ago, and now we are looking at high schools. And if you have kids, if any of you have kids, there is this process of, I believe that parenting is about preparing the child for the moment that you're no longer there to guide them. So this whole high school decision is his decision. I'm not going to make this decision for him. His mother's not going to make it for him. He has to. So every weekend since about mid-September, we have been going on high school visit after high school visit after high school visit. And after like the fourth one, he said, Dad, he walked into my home office. He said, Dad, so I want to talk to you. And I said, okay. He said, I love a high school. I know we still have more visits to go to, but I love this one high school. And I want to know, how do you know when it's right? And I said, I call him Mello. I said, well, Mello, what is it about this one high school that attracts you to the high school? And he says, well, Dad, it's the people. Every time I walk on campus, the people, they're always so nice. And the teachers. And I love how open everything is, and I love how it feels. I feel like they treat me with respect. I feel like there's a level of authenticity. I feel like I can be my best self. And I said, you want to know what's interesting about that? He goes, what? I said, what you're describing in corporate terms is culture. You're talking about culture. And he said, so am I supposed to choose the best, so am I supposed to choose the best school, or am I supposed to choose the school with the best culture? And I said, that's up to you. That's your choice. I said, but in my experience, oftentimes the best choice is the one that aligns with who you are as a person and not just what they offer. And he said, okay, Dad, okay. So I'm going to continue to look for the best culture. So this conversation happened a couple weeks ago. So I take these things and I put it in the back of my mind. And then I was traveling to go see a client last week. And while we're on the plane, when I tell you this gentleman was distraught, he was distraught from the moment that we started to board. He was having a conversation, and whatever the conversation was, he was visibly distraught. And we ended up sitting next to each other. So I am a lover of people. I pride myself on being in the business of human capital. And so I will always have a conversation, especially if I believe that somebody's going through distress. There's never, from my perspective, there's never a reason to not say, are you okay? So I'm sitting next to the gentleman, and I said, hey, are you okay? Are you all right? He goes, yeah, I'm just going through something at work. And I said, well, I'm always happy to be an ear. I know that I'm a stranger to you, but I'm always happy to be an ear if you want to talk through it. And he said, well, what do you do? And I said, well, I'm an executive coach. I founded a leadership development company. I'm an HR practitioner, wrote a book, did a couple tech talks. He said, about what? I said, leadership. Leadership and culture and executive coaching and all of those things. Please feel free, just come sit down. Leadership, culture, all of those things. And he goes, okay, well, maybe you can help. I said, okay. He said, I am having so much trouble in my organization hiring the right people and specifically keeping the right people. And I said, okay, what do you think the problem is? He said, I don't know. We're using all of the technology. We're automating everything. So we're keeping costs down. He said, we are, we have all of the partnerships that we need. And I said, okay. I said, so what do you think the problem is? He goes, I don't know. And I said, well, are you hiring based on skill set? Or are you hiring for who the person is? I said, because those are two different things. And he said, does that really work? And I said, in my experience, it does. All the way. I said, because what really brings people to an organization? Is it just the money? No, that's not it. Is it the free food? Is it the fact that people are in nice buildings and things like that? He goes, well, kind of a little bit. And I said, when was the last time you spoke to your candidates? You spoke to your people to really understand what it is that they want and what it is that they need. He said, well, I don't do that. I leave my managers to do that. And I said, well, are your managers doing it? He said, I think so. I said, I would recommend that you talk to your managers to make sure that they're actually talking to the people inside your organization and the candidates. Because what it sounds like outside looking in is that there's a disconnect. And there's a cultural disconnect. And I did not position this like this to him. This was after when I was putting the talk together. But I told him, I said, listen, there are a couple of key components when you're hiring somebody and you're attracting the people that you need in your organization. There are a couple of key components that will always remain true because business relationships and personal relationships operate on the same principles. What yields success in one yields success in the other because people drive both. And he goes, I buy that. Okay. And I said, so there are three kind of components to what really attracts a person to an organization in my experience. He said, what are they? I said, first one, who who is the person? Not what they can do, not what their experience is. Who are they? Do they have the things that you need? Are they the types of people that you would want to be with outside of work as well as inside of work? He said, didn't give a response. I said, no worries. I said, next, how? I said, how do people interact in your organization? He goes, what do you mean? I said, how do people interact? Are there guidelines for how you interact? He goes, well, we're all adults. We should know. I said, true, but what if we don't? What happens then? How do you know if you have high performers that are mean people? He goes, I said, and is a high performer worth the whole entire team? He goes, well, if they're bringing in money. And I said, what's the opportunity cost of that one person? How much money are you losing if that one person alienates various different people in the organization, in hiring, in recruiting, in all of those things? Is it worth it? He goes, something to think about. I said, lastly, what? What does the individual aspire to be? He goes, why does that matter? I said, because if you can't align your aspirations, the organization's aspirations with the person's aspirations, how do you expect to keep them? I said, because we all have this intrinsic desire to improve, to get better, to grow. That is one of the things that I believe all organizations have a responsibility to give to their teammates. How are you doing that? He said, I don't know. And so what I would say to you is that when you think about culture and the things that really attract people to your organizations, I would point you towards this for a moment. Culture is the product of who is in your organization, how they interact with one another, and what they aspire to for themselves that benefits the organization. This is culture. This is the thing that when we think about our organizations, whether we know it or not, this is the thing that keeps us there, especially the last piece, what we aspire to. And if you don't believe me, think about your personal goals, your personal aspirations, the things that you want to accomplish. And then ask yourself this question. If I found an organization that met me and that was dedicated to getting me to where I need to get to and helping me accomplish my goals, would I want to go to that organization? Put your hands up if you would want to go to that organization, right? Would you want to stay at that organization if they continue to meet you where you were? Yes? Okay. I asked him the same thing. And he said, so how do you implement this? Because now we're in full flight, right? We're in full flight, full conversation happening. He goes, well, how do you implement this? And I said, there's a couple of steps and we'll go through them. I said, first, I think you got to be clear. Now I'm going to take everybody through, this is an acronym, right? I didn't tell him we have to be clear. I gave him the actual steps. The acronym just came afterwards, right? So, but ultimately, the way that you implement the culture equation is you have to be clear about it. And being clear means, first and foremost, connect. When you have candidates, it's about connecting with the who the person is. Because as we know, people are more than just their skill sets. Does anybody in this room want to be defined by only their skill sets? Is that enough for you? For most individuals, it's not. Because what happens is they go, you only accept what I can do for the organization, but you're not accepting the me of it. So ultimately, that is the impetus for what gets people to start to look for other places, because that lack of acceptance is there. So a story to highlight this. Told you we're going to tell some stories. So one of my clients, he said, so I was serving as head of HR for one of my clients, and fractionally. And he said, hey, I want to understand, I keep getting this feedback about you, and I want to talk to you about it. So I am totally open to feedback. I believe, like, tell me the hard stuff. I always want to get better. So I'm preparing for the worst. And he said, in the history of me doing this, I've never met a person that gets more positive reviews on interviews. I said, okay. He goes, why? How? How is that happening? Why is it that when the candidate talks to you, you're the person that I end up hearing about? He goes, do you not ask them hard questions? I said, I think I asked them the hardest questions. He goes, so what do you do? I said, I talk to them about them, who they are. He goes, give me an example. I said, for example, I asked them, what's your superpower? He goes, what? I said, what is your superpower? What is it that you individually bring to society, not the job? What is the thing that you do so well that you are willing to give it to society? We talk through these types of things. And he goes, well, why is that important? I said, because if they want to give it to society, they're naturally going to give it to the organization. It's easy. They don't have to try. I said, I asked them about their aspirations, not just their work aspirations. What do they want to accomplish in life for themselves? Because depending on where you are in your journey, you have to make sure that the person's individual journey, and we'll talk about this in a moment, matches up with where the organization is. So it's super important to always connect with the who in this. And ultimately, we ended the conversation. He said, well, can you teach people how to interview like this? And I said, I can, but I can tell you simply, just have a conversation. Just have a conversation. Leave your title in your back pocket for a moment. I don't want to say leave the job in the back pocket, because that's not right, but leave your title in the back pocket and focus on if the individual is a right fit for your organization first. Will they fit? The resume is the resume, but will they fit inside of your organization? Do you want to talk to this person? Do you want to spend time with this person? How can they add value to your organization? It's just about having a conversation, and I believe that the key to it is vulnerability. Vulnerability begets vulnerability. It's a conversation. There aren't many of these standardized questions that we tend to ask. It's more so a conversation. Let's just sit down and chat. I remind them that it's a safe space. I remind them that we can talk about just about anything, and that I'm going to ask questions, because what's going to help them get to the place that they want to get to is if they are aligned with the who, if their who aligns with our who. Next step, I said, you have to look. And you have to look for intangible qualities that produce tangible results. He says, what the hell does that mean? And I said, so I'll tell you about the first time that I got promoted. Early in my career, I started my journey as a customer service representative, and I am proud of it. And when I was hired, 6 weeks after I was hired, the leader that hired me ended up relocating. So there was an open management position that was vacant. So after being there for 6 weeks, I took a bunch of notes, and I had a list of about 10 or 12 things. And I went to the director of operations at the time, and I said, look, I don't know who you're going to get to fill this role, but whoever it is, please have them focus on these 10 or 12 things. She said, Where'd you get this list from? I said, just observations. Just observations from me being here for 6 weeks. She looked at me and she said, thank you very much. That was the end of the conversation. About a week and a half, 2 weeks later, she pulls me in the office and she goes, listen, I want you to know that we found the person for the role and your list was instrumental in helping us find that person. I was like, congratulations, this is great. Who is my new leader? She handed the paper back to me and said, let me know how that goes. Me? Yes. No, I'm not taking it. I said, I'm fresh out of college. I don't have call center experience. Throughout my earlier years, I started working when I was 12. So between 12 and 17, I was in the restaurant industry, right? And that's where I started to interact and things like that. So I said, I have restaurant experience and I know how to manage people from that perspective. I said, but I don't do this. I said, I have to be taught this. She said, what you have, I can't teach. You understand people. And because you understand people, I can teach you the call center industry. I can teach you the rewards piece, the reward recognition industry. I can't teach you how to actually care, lead, and manage people. It was the intangible quality that ended up being the reason why I was able to elevate, right? And I'll be the person to say that it wasn't just that role. In every role, in every journey that I've been on, every piece of my journey, it's always been about all of the intangibles that produce the tangible results. I've done stints in just about every piece of business: operations, customer experience, sales, finance, BPO, outsourcing, customer success, you name it. I don't care about the metrics. The metrics are the guidelines, the numbers up there. Do we use them as North Stars? Absolutely. But how do you get people to hit those numbers? It's through driving success through the people. It's through the people. So it's important to look for the intangible qualities that lead to the tangible results. He's still with me so far in this conversation. Next, I said, you got to ensure that what they want for themselves, the organizations want. I said, because what leg of your journey are you in? He goes, what do you mean? I said, well, you could be in the startup phase of your journey where, that first 1 to 3 or 4 years, it's all passion, it's all life, it's all excitement. And that's a particular skill set. That's a particular type of person that you need. I said, after you get through those years, then there are the governance periods. Because that passion and all of that excitement, that's great for 20 people. It's really hard to manage for 200. And now what the organization requires for success is not this open forum. It's more so, now we need structure. We need guidelines because now there's too many people there. That's the second piece. I said the last piece is scalability. After you've passed these first 2 stages, now we have the governance, we have the people, we've kind of gotten the culture all right. Now how do we scale it? That's also a different person because that person is forward-looking. I said, so what part of your journey is the organization in? Because you have to align that with what part of the journey the person is in. The way that I was willing to give up every single solitary thing 10 or 15 years ago for a job, I am a whole husband, I am a whole dad right now. I can't give the same way now. It's different. And it's not that I'm not willing to work as hard, but the way that my day is structured now versus how it was structured then are 2 different things. So he says, got it. I said, so there's been times in organizations for me where they were at the scalability phase and I was very much at the governance phase. And I had to I've lost jobs because of that, because I wasn't able to make that transition. So Aligning the person's individual aspirations and where they want to go and where they are in their journey is hugely important during the interview process and during and while you're managing your employee experience for the people that are there, making sure that you check in to make sure that there's alignment there. Because when there's misalignment between where they want to go and where the organization wants to go, you get friction, right? I have a client now that I'm working with, and they are all about profitability and now making money. And this is the first time in the past, 15 years since this new CEO has been there that this has been the mandate. It's been about art before, it's been about culture before, it's been about all of those things, but now we're moving operational excellence that moves towards profitability. That is a fundamental shift. My comment to that CEO was, be prepared to lose people. Be prepared to lose people. Because when you make that type of shift, everybody's not built for it. And you have to decide how much time you have to get the people that you want to keep in the organization. Can they get there within the time frame that you need, or can they not? Next, align. Align with the person to ensure that what they want out of the position is what the position wants out of them. What the position wants out of them, there has to be this level of making sure that you guys are absolutely aligned. Because sometimes there may be that you may have a role for a project manager, but you know that project manager role has some other nuances to it, so they're going to need something else. You have to make sure that what that role needs of them, both short-term and long-term, that they want that for themselves and they want that out of the position. There's been roles where I want the push and where the teammates want the push. There's been roles where not so much. They just want a job based on where they are in their journey. Right? Lastly, remember, there's always risk involved. Until they produce the results on their resume for your organization, there will be risk. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because if there's risk, what are you going to risk it on? Are you going to place that risk on what the person says they've done? Or are you going to place that risk on who the person has shown that they are through their experience, through their narrative, through the interview process, and the level of consistency there? Neither one is a guarantee, but one has a higher probability of success than the other. Right? So we had this conversation, and I closed it out with this other story. And I told him, I said, for me, this hiring process, it's all about the who, and it's all about the actual person. And that is what we're seeing when we're hiring the next generation. Because when you look at what they want out of a job, it's very different than what the generation prior to, the millennials, wanted, right? There's a different level of flexibility now. There's a different level of ownership. They want trust. They want diversity. They want all of these things. And these are all things that represent the culture. So I told him about this fireside chat that I was able to witness at one of the organizations. And in that fireside chat, we were talking to a hedge fund manager, like one of the investors. And one of the questions that was asked was, how do you know what to choose? How do you know who to invest in? And they go, well, we have over 250 people that pitch to us. We choose 12 per year. Here's the process. We talk to the person and we say, hey, so tell me about yourself. The first thing the person says is, so my product does this, this, and this. He goes, no. I don't want to know about your product. Tell me about you. I want to know about you. So then they try it again. I went to college here, here, and here. That's not what I asked. Go further back. Take me back as far as you can possibly go, and let's go on this journey. And I was like, oh. He's like, why? I said, because. He said, what if the market goes south? What if we invest millions of dollars and the market conditions are terrible and they go south. What happens to the money? I still need my ROI. If the product fails, I need to have faith that the person won't. I need to have faith that they're going to be able to figure it out. And this is an organization that is investing hundreds of millions of dollars a year in people and organizations. And so my question to the gentleman that I was sitting next to was, if we have hedge funds and investors that are putting millions and millions of dollars into organizations, but their number one requirement is who the person is, then why are we overcomplicating it when we're trying to hire talent, bring talent in the organization? Why does it have to be any more complicated? I'm not saying the other things aren't important, but what I am saying is that it has to be 100%, you have to tend to 100% of the human before you can get 100% out of the employee, regardless of the level. And, it ended well. We ended up exchanging information. Maybe I'll get a client out of it. Who knows, right? But the moral of the story was that he really did understand why his organization, or possibly why his organization, was in the position that it was in after our 2-hour conversation. And I thought that it would be important to just share it because it was real life. It happened last week. And I think that that's what, when you talk about, how to look at talent acquisition and how it's changing and what we really need to do is, with all of the technology that's happening, AI, things like that, we have to make sure that we do not lose the humanity and we do not lose the human piece of it. Because no amount of technology is going to be able to create the feeling that we get to know whether that teammate is right or not.
Thank you again for such an excellent keynote. I also want to thank everyone else for joining us today. This session, along with all of today's content, will be made available on demand following the event. Our next session will begin shortly, so please click the join button that will appear on your screen to be redirected, and we look forward to seeing you there.